Hello and welcome to today's show, The Breakthrough Podcast. I am your host, Reba Bell. Hey guys, thank you for listening. If you love this show, sign up for Anchor.fm. It's a great way to build your podcast and get paid for doing it. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's by Spotify. It's the easiest way to build a podcast with everything that you need all in one place. Anchor has tools that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone. When you're hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, it's free. Anchor is totally free. And again, you can sign up at anchor.fm to get started today. Hey guys, we're back. Thank you for taking the time out to get the email subscription. So you guys should have got the email that said that we was on break last week. So I hope you guys had a great 4th of July weekend, holiday weekend. And I did too. I personally did. I spent some time with family and friends. So I personally enjoyed myself. So I hope you guys did too. But thank you for chiming in today and listening to today's podcast. We're just going to get right started. Today's podcast is pretty much continuing on the word of the year is elevation. But we're continuing on talking about trauma, generational curses, and generational blessings, and how to heal from certain things. But today's podcast, we're technically talking about trauma bonding with relationships and friendships. Now, if you don't know what trauma bonding is, I'll just give you a quick definition of what I looked up and what I found, and then I'll give you my responses. Of course, you know this podcast is always my personal stories and my platform on what I've been through to help other people have a breakthrough in their current lives. So, when we talk about trauma bonding, we refer it to a strong emotional bond that always develops between a survivor of prolonged abuse and the perpetrator of the abuse. So what that means is whatever connected you guys to have a friendship or relationship. And I want to talk about, personally, we're talking about relationships and friendships because a lot of people don't think they have trauma bonds. That's what they call it, with people they have friendship with, but it's very true. The same trauma that you may have endured in a relationship, you can endure that in a friendship. Vice versa, it could be heterosexual, it could be same sex, it doesn't matter. And when we talk about trauma bonding in that reference, I want you guys to understand and know that it's always ways, there are always more ways than one to heal and to let yourself be a new person and start over with whatever relationship you have. Of course, you guys know that I am just not talking about domestic violence. We're rebranding. I have to keep repeating that because a lot of people, I am known to be a breakthrough coach for domestic violence survivors, mostly women. But I'm also expanding my horizons because I feel like I'm using the knowledge that God has given me and the experience that I actually have. I am also transitioning, that's why we were branding, into the healing process. So pretty much what I coach you on and what I coach my clients on is healing in itself from trauma, past trauma, history, domestic violence. So it's a whole spectrum of what I do. So again, we're rebranding. It's just not about domestic violence because I know a lot of people know my personal story and a lot of people listen because they know I talk about how to heal and get over a domestic violence relationship. And most of the time it's relationships. But if you actually read my first book talk about the domestic violence and the DV that I had with my mom. So I talk about it in a whole spectrum because we just can't just put it on one broad thing one narrow thing, I'll say, and it's broader than just being in a relationship. When I want you guys to hear from me, and I want you guys to heal, because these are things that I personally been through in relationships, and I'm talking about friendships, that I didn't realize until after many areas of therapy, many areas of counseling, and helping other people that's been in my life, spiritual advisors, whatever you want to call it. You guys know I have a spiritual father, so um, whatever you want to call it, I use my platform and this platform personally to help those who have been through what I've been through, and to help them know that you can't heal and you can't be a survivor and you can't be an overcomer. So when I talk about trauma bonding, I want to bring up first my personal experience. I had it has to be like 21, 22 year friendship with a best friend of mine. And we was best friends since high school. We did everything together. It's like if she went left, I went left. She went right, I went right, vice versa. We have slept on each other's couches when we both was like in between living situations. We have had phones together. We got cars together. Anything you can imagine and name, we did it. It was like at one point in time, we used to call each other our husband. We was husband and wife. Whoever was the husband or the wife, whatever you want to call it. And it was a great relationship for me. It was. I can't say it wasn't a give and take relationship. But what I realized, we're not friends anymore. We kind of broke off our friendship during the pandemic, and pretty much she ghosted me. But that's fine. That's totally fine now. But I realized just from that relationship, it was a trauma bond relationship that I had. And it didn't turn, and I want you guys to understand, certain relationships may not turn into trauma bonding until you realize what y'all have in common. Trauma bonding is anything that you have negatively, because that's what trauma is, relate, and you're relatable to each other. Me and her trauma bonding at the time was our history, how we grew up. As you guys know, I talk about generational all this month. Well, all last month I talked about, and I'm continuing to talk about generational blessings and generational curses. And basically, we both had generational things that was done to us in our childhood and that we experienced, and that's what connected us. And what I'm saying is that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it could become a toxic thing if that's the only thing you guys are staying connected to, because people grow up, people grow, their relationships change, and they flourish. And if one or the other person doesn't want that or don't see that for their lives, a lot of that can make the relationship change. So back to my story, my personal story was me and her had a trauma bond relationship that I didn't realize until later. Our connection was our history, but then what it led up to things we both been through with abuse, abusive relationships that we had, and then it ended up being the relationships that we had as with our husbands. And at the time, me and her both was connected, and I ended up moving. She's actually the reason why, if people don't know, I live in Wisconsin. She's the reason why I actually moved here, because she lives 15 minutes away. Everything that I was going through in my past life, she had ended up moving, and she just started her life over and everything else, and it was great. But I felt like I needed my best friend. I needed to be closer to her, because she was like the piece of the puzzle that I felt like I was missing. Now, at this time, I was dating my husband that is now, but I was dating, and basically it was like everything was about her. Whatever she said, I just do, because I just knew that she always, one way or the other, had my back. It did not matter um what the relationship was or what it was. It was just like she said something and it's a go. I said something, it's a go. So we made plans together, and we always did everything together, whether we was married, had kids, both of us had kids, and everything else. Well, the relationship kind of soured, and I could say that it soured before I moved here years ago. The first time we fell out was technically, I went through abuse with my son's father. And once I went through the abuse with my son's father, I ended up telling my friend I was going to go back. I was considering. I didn't go back, but I was considering going back to my son's father and being in a relationship with him. Well, she didn't like that. Make a long story short, she thought that I was going to go back or whatever, because at the time, we young, we're dumb. I had my son at 24 or 25. So, of course, it is what it is. I know what I know now. And she cut me off. She basically cut me off, and she basically said, "You're stupid," and it was like, it was just me having a conversation with my friend. It was a thought, okay? Now, that didn't stem from just that. It stemmed from, I watched her go through an abusive relationship or whatever with a boyfriend, and it was just like, okay, how could you be the pot calling the kettle black? But okay. And so that relationship ended up ending. Years later, okay, we got back together. I ended up finding her, finding out through her husband, because me and her husband actually was friends at first in high school, and then it became me and her being friends. That was just a funny story. But, and, disclaimer, she's a beautiful person. She's just a beautiful person. But my point of saying all this or whatever, and to finish the story, I'm going to finish the story. Sometimes people don't want to see you in a different light of what they already know you as. So that's why. But years later, we reconnected. Relationship was great. I ended up moving here because of she told me and my husband that it would be a better area, very better thing for us, and it was. I would never. I'm not moving from Wisconsin unless God tell me to. But I don't plan on staying here all my life. But at the same time, yes, it was a better move. So I moved here, and probably like shortly after a couple of months, I started realizing that we wasn't spending time together as much as we used to. I used to always come here. And if anybody know where we lived, it was like an hour and a half drive. So I used to always come here and visit her, and we just lay in the bed. We eat cookies and ice cream all the time, and we just laugh and giggle. That's all we did, was all day we laughed and giggled. But when I moved here, things changed, and things slowly changing with our relationship. It was like things in between was like really slow. My goddaughters, because she has two daughters, that was my goddaughters, that everything just started changing, and slowly I'll pick up my goddaughters, and our relationship just kind of fell off when I moved here. But what actually made it fall off, to me, in my opinion, because I never really knew the whole why she ghosted me, but I understood after. We had one connection that we did every time we had a problem. We called each other and we talked bad about our husbands. All we did was vent bad about our husbands. How much they wasn't doing this. How much they wasn't helping doing that. And because if you meet me and her, we was just strong, I don't say independent women, but we were, even though we were married. That always had our family down, that stuck to our family. But at the same time, it wasn't technically their fault that we married them. And that's hindsight looking back. That was our fault. Because certain things I say to my clients, and I say from me learning, you notice the red flags, what they call red flags in the beginning, but we sweep them under the rug when we're dating. So, if for whatever reason, because of love, because of lust, because of a distraction with sex, and you enter in sex with it, and a lot of other things. So, we had that trauma bond about our husbands. And so that's what kept connecting with us, of complaining and calling each other and venting about our husbands. Now, it's a difference. I want to say it is so much of a difference if you're venting and you getting your girlfriends or friends information of how can I deal with this in a better way, because that's what friends are for. Things that you shouldn't say to your husband, you could say. Vice versa, a male can say to they wife, they should say to their male, just a vent. But it should be a relationship that nourishes, where you're becoming better people in the relationships that you are in. And if you're going to get off the phone, or you're having date nights, or whatever you're going to do, it should be like, okay, everybody is not always right and everybody is not always wrong, but it should be somewhere of the relationship should be helping you grow. Well, our relationship, like I said, was more like us venting, and then we just talk about them so bad, then we get off the phone. There was nothing personal that said that we both either was trying to change or help our husbands change. Where it changed for us is when I called her one day and I was bragging about something my husband did for me, because he paid down off all my debt off my credit card, and so I was just bragging about all the great things he had did by having this idea of paying off my debt. And make a long story short, she was more like, "Oh, that's great, but such and such did this and such did that." It wasn't about my husband. And then that started making me realize, like, okay, well, we shouldn't be just talking about the negative that they do, because I'm telling you, everybody that you get with, it doesn't matter. They got negative, but at the same time, you got with them for a positive. You didn't get with them because of the negatives. You didn't get with them because of what they was and wasn't doing. You was, when you go through that honeymoon stage, and y'all in those first 3 months of what I call it, everything that they do, it's nothing negative that you do not see. It's like you seen the red flags, but you ignoring them. I just put it like that. So those are the same men that we decided to marry. These are husbands I'm talking about, not boyfriends. But we made the choice to marry them, but now we want to complain about their mistakes, or whatever you want to call it. And not, one, changed us, but two, changed the thought process of what we was doing. And I say we because I take full responsibility for that relationship, for what I've done, my part in everything, and feeding into that and everything. But like I said, once I realized that's what I need to start changing, slowly our relationship and our conversations, when she did call, I started bringing up nice stuff he did, because I started practicing, like, okay, stop complaining when, it's not just negative stuff he's doing, the positive stuff he's doing too. You can't just give the negative. And I tell everybody this. I don't call you with a negative story to tell you a negative story, but then I don't come back if it's a positive that turns around, or a testimony that I call it, turns around. You have to give both sides, because just leaving with people with negative thoughts, you know what they end up doing? It creates other friends and family to view your mate, your spouse, in a different way, because you're not giving them both sides. You're just giving them the one negative side. And if that was the case, then why did you marry that person? But that's another time for another story. That's another podcast. So that was our trauma bond. Our trauma bond was pretty much us negatively talking about our husbands at that time. Once I wanted to change, I started feeling like I need to change this. That's when our relationship fell off. One day, like I said, she ghosted me. I end up calling her husband. I would still talk to her husband. And because that's her husband, he's not gonna, disclose whatever it was, why it was. But He just basically gave me a blunt, like, she's okay. Because at first I thought it was something wrong. Maybe she got COVID, maybe something. Because she work in the, this was around pandemic time. She works in she's works in the hospitals. She does surgery, and she's a surgical assistant. That's what she does. So, make a long story short, she ghosted me. And at that time, I was just like, what happened? What happened? I'm just like, not understanding what could possibly happen. But when I start slowly changing my life, that's when I start writing my first book. I start getting more into God. God had to make me realize He removes people sometimes when we don't want to remove them. He removes them for our safety and for our purpose. Because I could tell you honestly, I really don't think I'll be where I'm at. I don't think I would have 2 books. I'm working on the 3rd right now. I don't think I would have this podcast right now. I don't think I would have a coaching program right now if I still had that relationship. And not saying that she was bad. Like I said, that relationship was just a trauma bond that I wouldn't be able to focus on something positive. I wouldn't be able to focus on trying to help people from healing from domestic violence. I wouldn't try to focus on how to help people heal from their trauma and their past and their history, if I still had that relationship. I think, in my opinion, I think God removed her for me to focus on what I need to do. And also, over these years, He has brought so many lovely women in my life. I have one best friend that I found. Well, we connected right away when I was here. It's going on 3 years for that we've been best friends. But and it's just like she's great, but we don't have a trauma bond relationship, and that's what I make sure that I don't do. Create what I did before. We vent, we talk. She's been there for my valleys. She's been there for my mountaintops. But we also help each other to become better people. So that's what I wanted to leave you with, is that I'm going to give you the points and the notes that I have, but I'm going to sum it up that trauma bonds can hinder your future. They can hinder your life. You have to realize what a trauma bond is when you're in a relationship with someone. Why are you connected to that person? Find out and have a definition of what the relationship or the friendship is about. It should have just the same way you have a vision and a mission statement for your life, for your business, you should have one for your friendship. You should have one for your marriage. Why are you guys friends? Why are you in a relationship? What does the give and take process feel like in the relationship? And that's what I want you guys to focus on. How to eliminate the trauma bonds. And then, because you could be in a trauma bond relationship and you don't have to be in a situation like I was, where I eliminated the relationship, where she eliminated the relationship. But you could be in a situation like I was, where when you noticed it, you try to change it and bring it to the other person awareness in time, so you both guys could change. Because if you really love each other, 20-something years, I knew she really loved me and I loved her. It hurts. It hurt at that time. I'm not really hurt over it now. If I see her today, I would still say hi, but I don't think that relationship would be the same. But I just want you to know that if you are in a trauma bond relationship, eliminate it, get rid of it, or try to redevelop it. The notes that I have for you today is to make a commitment to live in reality. That means what is happening right in front of your face, talk about it. Reality, not in a fantasy world. Live in real time. Whatever's hurting you, talk about it, express it. Live your one decision at a time. And this one was a big one for me, only because if I'm making a decision and we all over the place and I'm making a decision, I only can make this decision for this time being. Meaning, okay, we will not talk about our husbands negatively. We need to focus on the positives. We need to focus on this. That's something I could have incorporated with her instead of me noticing it and not saying anything and just trying to change it. I could have just brought it to her attention. Make the decisions that support your self-care. Meaning, if you're in a relationship or a friendship and it's eating away at you and it's like a leech, as they call it, and you're not having the time for yourself and it feels like this relationship is draining you, remove yourself from it. Have your self-care, because it's only one you. Start feeling your emotions, meaning acknowledging what's going on. Learn to grieve. I had to grieve that relationship. And again, these are trauma bond exercises that you can do to heal from trauma bonds, if they are eliminated or if they are still part of your life. Learn to grieve. And when you grieve, you're acknowledging it. Understanding what you are losing. I had to understand that I lost a dear friend of mine, but we wasn't on the same patterns and wavelengths anymore. Write a list of boundaries that you need to stick to them. This is a big one. I talk about this one in my book, my first book, because we get in these relationships and we don't set boundaries. We get in friendships and we don't set boundaries. If it's something that you are not allowed, put it out there. I'm at the point in my life where my friends and my family members, because I've been through so much, that when I say something, I mean it. That means that's my boundary. I would not allow this to happen. And if it happens, we're going to have a problem. After I said it, not saying I'm just going to blow up. We're going to address it again, and then we'll make a decision where I need to eliminate that or step back for a while, because you're not understanding. I have boundaries same way your friends should have boundaries for you. I should have friends that have boundaries for me. There should not be limits that you have with your friends where you just could hit and be like, oh, this is because she could just take that or he could just take that. No, you should have limits with everybody. Limitations with everybody. So there should be limits. That's what I meant. There should be limits that you hit, because at the same time, if you love someone, you should be telling them and showing them at the same time. Love is an action word, and I say this all the time in my relationships. You can't just tell me you love me without showing me that you love me in ways that you know that my boundaries are not being met, and we're not overstepping it. Vice versa. I can't give you something that I'm not doing myself. Build your life over. It is okay, this is number 9, to start over with your life. Whatever friendship, like I just told you, got replaced with great friends that I have now. That doesn't mean that relationship was a waste of 20-something years. That means that I learned from it, and it got me to where I need to go, and it's over. Like they say, that old saying, people are here for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. You have to figure that out. But it's okay to start to build your life over. If you're getting a divorce, okay, that's fine. It's okay to start over. Get another relationship later. Heal, rebuild, and start your life over. You lose a friend, that's okay. Learn from it. Heal, rebuild, and start your life over. If you get another job and you lose that job, it's okay to get fired. Heal, rebuild, and start over. Last point, if you are starting a business, I run my own business, and this is hard enough to get in front of a podcast and tell my life story and everything else. You guys just don't know what I do every week, every day, to even try to prep my mind to even talk to you guys about what personally I go through or went through to help someone else. But I have to do it. So I built my life on now helping other people on my platform. Also, the last thing, number 10, is building healthy connection relationships. That is the biggest one. Number 10. Start having those boundaries set. Go out there, start getting new friends. Start building the healthy relationships. Eliminate the ones that's unhealthy. And I promise you, your trauma bonds, you can be healed from them, and they can heal at the same time. You can do both. So that is today's Breakthrough Podcast. I am your host, Reba. I thank you for listening today. Yes, guys, thank you for the sponsorship. Thank you for listening, the platform, and sharing, because you are doing great work. That I am doing great work. That means that I am helping you guys. The more you listen, you know that I am on YouTube, so please share this platform on YouTube. Go like, link, subscribe on YouTube. I'm trying to get my YouTube following up more, because that's more where I want to be with my podcast. So I thank you guys for just listening, sharing, liking, supporting me every week. People call me telling me how much I helped them, how the podcast helped them, and so I just love you guys. On that note, don't forget the word of the year is elevation, and we are out of here. I'll see you guys next week on the Breakthrough Podcast. Thanks for listening in on today's show. You can find me online at RebaBell.com to order any of my products or my books, or you can find me at Instagram at BreakthroughCoach_Reba Arve. Thank you again, and see you next week.